My mum stole my man, except he wasn't a man worth stealing. Okay, I need to tell this story before I lose the nerve, because I have been sitting on it for 2 years, and honestly, it's been eating me alive. Not because I'm still angry, I'm not. Weirdly, but because every time I try to explain it to a friend, I start laughing halfway through, and then I start crying, and then I lose the thread entirely, and the person just stares at me like I need medication. Maybe I do. I don't know. But here it is. My name doesn't matter. Call me Diane. I'm 41 years old. I live in Scottsdale, Arizona. I have a job I like, a small house I love, a rescue greyhound named Biscuit, who has never made a single bad decision in his entire life, which is more than I can say for the two women in this story. Those two women would be me and my mother. Her name is Patricia. She goes by Trish. She's 64. She still dyes her hair the exact same auburn shade she's been doing since 1987. She wears turquoise jewelry like it's a religion, and she has been divorced 3 times. 3. She is not someone who gives up on romance. She is someone who should. I say that with love. I really do. Okay, let me start at the beginning, because if I start at the end, you will not believe me, and I need you to believe me. It was a Tuesday in March, 2.5 years ago. I had just come out of a bad stretch, a relationship that lasted 4 years, and ended when I found out he'd been using our joint credit card to buy concert tickets for someone who was not me. Fun. Anyway, I was rebuilding. Slowly. I was going to hot yoga 3 mornings a week. I was sleeping 9 hours a night. I was eating salads and hating every single one of them. And I was being very mature about the whole thing. My mum had been widowed well, divorced, but same energy about 8 months before that. Husband number 3, Roger, had decided at 62 that he wanted to find himself. He found himself in Sedona with a woman named Crystal who made crystals. Good for Roger, truly. So my mum and I were both single at the same time, which had not happened since I was in my 20s. And we had started doing this thing where we'd go to brunch on Sundays and sort of commiserate, which was actually kind of nice. My mum can be a lot, but when she drops the performance, she's genuinely funny and sharp, and she gives good advice, even if she never takes any of it herself. This one Sunday, she was already at the table when I walked in Snooze Cafe, the one off Camelback, and she had this expression on her face. I clocked it immediately. It's the expression she gets when she's discovered something she considers excellent, like the time she found a vintage Chanel blazer at the Goodwill in Paradise Valley. Pure, self-satisfied radiance. I met someone, she said. I sat down. I picked up my menu, even though I've ordered the same thing there for 3 years. Tell me. His name is Marco. He's Italian. I looked up from the menu. Is he actually Italian or is he Phoenix Italian? She gave me a look. He's from Milan. He came here for work 5 years ago. He's in some kind of investment consulting. Ding. In retrospect, ding, ding, ding. But hindsight is a comfortable couch and nobody sits there in real time. Where did you meet him? The farmer's market. He was buying olive oil and he asked me which one I'd recommend and we talked for 45 minutes. Mum, you do not know anything about olive oil. I know, but I learned. And here's the thing, Diane. She leaned forward. He asked for my number. She was glowing. I mean that literally. She had a glow. I hadn't seen her glow like that since before Roger started his spiritual journey. So I smiled, and I said that was wonderful, and I meant it, and I thought nothing more of it. Except then she brought him to my birthday dinner. She hadn't said she was bringing anyone. She'd asked if she could bring a guest, and I'd assumed that meant my cousin Linda, who always crashes these things. Or maybe her friend Donna from book club, who I genuinely like. I did not assume it meant Marco from Milan. And here is where the story takes a turn I was not prepared for. Marco walked in with my mother, and he was... I'm going to describe him objectively, okay? I'm going to try to be fair. He was one of those men who look like someone drew them. Tall, broad shoulders, dark hair going silver at the temples, jaw like a confidence seminar. He wore a white linen shirt. He smelled like something European and faintly expensive. He looked at me and smiled and said, in a voice that should be federally regulated, "You must be Diane. Your mother talks about you constantly." And my brain just went static. My mother saw my face. I know she did, because she introduced him very quickly and then put her hand on his arm in a way that was extremely deliberate and which I clocked and pretended not to. We had dinner. He was charming. He asked everyone questions and remembered the answers. He knew about wine. He told a story about getting lost in Morocco that was either completely true or completely fabricated. And honestly, either way, it was gripping. By the end of the night, my Aunt Celia had offered him her guest room if he ever needed it, which she lives in Flagstaff, he graciously declined. I drove home that night, and I sat in my driveway for probably 10 minutes, just staring at the garage door. Biscuit was watching me from the passenger seat with his gentle, stupid eyes. "I know," I told him. He did not respond because he's a dog. The problem was, I didn't do anything about it. I'm not someone who would make a move on someone my mother was dating. That's just no. I have a code. It's a short code, but it exists, and that rule is on it. But Marco kept appearing. He came to my mum's house one Sunday when I happened to be there dropping off some things. He texted my mum to say hello, and she showed me the texts with this girlish excitement that genuinely made me happy for her, and also kind of miserable for reasons I wasn't letting myself examine too closely. He sent her flowers once, and she sent me a photo of them immediately, and they were extraordinary flowers, which made it worse. And then, one Wednesday afternoon in April, he texted me directly. I don't know how he got my number. I know my mother gives my number to everyone. She once gave it to a plumber because she thought he seemed lonely. So I didn't think too much about that part. The text said, "Diane, your mother mentioned you're looking for investment advice. I'd love to help if I can. Coffee sometime?" I stared at that text for a very long time. And here is where I made my first mistake. I told myself it was professional. I told myself I was being adult and sensible. I told myself that getting coffee with my mother's boyfriend to discuss financial planning was a completely normal and reasonable thing to do. I did not tell my mother. We met at a place in downtown Scottsdale. He was already there when I arrived, with 2 coffees already on the table, like he'd known what I'd want. Which should have been manipulation, but which my brain filed under attentive. We talked for 2 hours. He was very good at his thing, whatever his thing was. He talked about markets and diversification, and he used my name a lot, which I know is a sales technique, and which still worked on me because I have weaknesses. I'm human. He said he was setting up a small investment group for select clients, people he'd personally vetted, people he genuinely liked. The returns were going to be significant. Minimum buy-in was $8,000, but for me, as a personal favor, he could do 5. I said I'd think about it. I went home. I thought about it. What I thought about was not actually the investment. What I thought about was the fact that he'd said, at one point, that he and my mother were getting to know each other, which I passed as not serious, not exclusive, which I then hated myself for passing. He texted me 2 days later, just to check in, just to see how I was thinking about things. And I texted back, and then we texted a little more, and then I need to tell you something mortifying. There was a brief, shameful window of about 3 weeks where I was texting with Marco. My mother was texting with Marco, and neither of us knew about the other's texting situation beyond the surface-level baseline of he's mum's nice friend from the farmer's market who I occasionally run into. I feel genuinely terrible about this in retrospect. Genuinely. Not because of Marco, who deserves nothing, but because of my mum, who deserved better than that from me. But here's the thing I didn't know. She was also not being entirely transparent. Because while I thought she was still casually dating this man, she had been really seeing him for 6 weeks. Dinners, drives to Sedona, the whole thing. She hadn't told me the full extent of it, because she said later she was worried I would think it was too soon after Roger, which was thoughtful of her in a way that was also completely obscuring the relevant information. So we were both in this weird little fog, orbiting the same man, who was playing extremely careful, extremely confident golf with both of us simultaneously. The investment pitch, by the way, had also gone to my mother, the same one. 5,000 minimum, select group, significant returns. She told me this later with an expression on her face that I cannot fully describe. It was somewhere between horror and the specific humiliation of recognizing yourself in a funhouse mirror. It broke open in the most undignified way possible. My mother called me on a Saturday morning. I was in the kitchen, drinking coffee, letting Biscuit sniff aggressively at nothing by the back door. She sounded strange, a little tight in the voice. "Did Marco invite you to dinner?" she said. I paused. "What kind of dinner?" "Thursday night. His apartment. Small gathering of close friends," he said. Another pause. Longer this time. "Yes," I said. Silence. Diane. "Mum." More silence. And then, "I swear to you," she said, in the most flat, controlled voice I've ever heard from a woman who once screamed at a grocery store manager for 12 minutes over expired coupons. "How long?" "Nothing happened, Mum. I promise you. Nothing actually happened." "How long have you been texting him?" I closed my eyes. "About 3 weeks. But it was," I started to say, "just professional," and I could not make that sentence leave my mouth, because it was not fully true, and my mother can detect a half-truth the way Biscuit detects squirrels, instantly from great distance, with enormous agitation. What followed was a 40-minute conversation that I will describe only as necessary. There was crying. There was a period where she hung up on me, and I called back, and she picked up mid-ring because she'd been waiting. There was an extremely unflattering moment where she said she'd been considering whether to invest the $5,000, and I said I had been too, and there was about a 3-second pause where we were both doing math in real time and the math was coming out bad. Wait, I said. I know, she said. He pitched both of us. I know. The same pitch. Select clients. Personal favor. The 5,000. Diane. Her voice had gone very quiet. He pitched Linda too. My cousin, Linda, who had been at the birthday dinner, who had also apparently been charmed sufficiently to exchange numbers. Mum, I said slowly, how many women do you think are invited to this Thursday dinner? Long pause. I think we should find out, she said. We did not confront him at the dinner. We did something better, which was that we both declined separately via text, with nice excuses. And then my mother, who has been through 3 divorces and has retained something from each of them, called a friend of hers who does financial compliance work for the state. She described the investment scheme, the terminology, the structure. Her friend made 2 phone calls and called back within an hour. Marco, whose real name turned out to be Marcus, and who was from Tucson, not Milan, was currently under investigation for running a small-scale Ponzi scheme targeting women he met through social events and farmers markets in 3 Arizona counties. There was nothing to arrest him for yet. There would be eventually. But he was known. He was being watched. My mother called me immediately after she hung up. Marcus, she said, from Tucson. Marcus from Tucson, I confirmed. Another pause. The olive oil, she said. He picked the wrong one, didn't he? You told me later he picked the overpriced one that tastes like nothing. I thought it was charming that he had an opinion even if he was wrong. She sounded very tired. I am 64 years old. Mom. I genuinely liked him, Diane. I know. Yeah. Me too, a little, which I'm not proud of. She exhaled slowly. He was very good looking. He was objectively extremely good looking. That linen shirt. Don't, I said. I know. We both sat with that for a second, and then she laughed. One short, disbelieving sound, and then I laughed. And then we both laughed for probably longer than was healthy, the kind of laughing that's right next to crying and keeps switching lanes without signaling. We have to tell Linda, I said finally. Linda already texted him no for Thursday. She said she had a weird feeling. Linda has excellent instincts. Linda always has excellent instincts. It's incredibly annoying. There is no triumphant ending here. We never got to confront Marcus from Tucson directly. We gave the name and what we knew to the right person, and that went where it went. And honestly, that's enough. That's justice in the boring, functional, unglamorous way that actual justice usually works. No dramatic scene. No moment where he looked at us across a room and understood he'd lost. I won't pretend that doesn't feel like a small missing piece. But here's what I got instead. About 2 weeks later, I was at my mum's house. We were sitting on her back patio, the one with the string lights and the dying cactus she refuses to throw out because she says it's resting. We had wine. We had chips and that artichoke dip she makes that is technically from a box, but which she presents with enormous personal pride. And we talked, really talked, in a way we hadn't in maybe years, because we'd never needed to before, or we'd never let ourselves. She told me she'd been terrified, after Roger, that that was it, that there wasn't going to be another chapter. And I told her I'd been terrified of the same thing for completely different reasons. And she said something that has stayed with me since. She said, "We both fell for the same man, and neither of us should be embarrassed by that. He was designed to be fallen for. That's what he did for a living. We're not idiots. We're just people who still want things. She's right. I think she's right. And I think the people who love the hardest tend to be the ones who get fooled the most. And I am not sure that's a flaw exactly. I think it might just be the cost of still being in the game. We're closer now than we've been since I was probably 23. We text every day. I bring biscuit over on Sundays. She still goes to the farmer's market, but now she goes with a friend, and she says any man who initiates conversation over olive oil gets a polite smile and 0 phone numbers. Solid policy. I've adopted it myself. If you've ever had someone you loved disappoint you, or if you've ever been the one doing the disappointing, or if you've ever looked at yourself in the middle of a situation and thought, how in the world did I get here? I hope some part of this felt familiar. Not the con artist part specifically, just the rest of it. The wanting, the blindness, the way you can love someone and still be competing with them without even fully admitting it. We didn't lose $5,000, in case you were wondering. Neither of us ever sent it. We were both, as it turns out, in the thinking about it phase, which is where the whole thing unraveled, and I'm grateful for that. I genuinely am. We lost something else, I think, a comfortable fiction about ourselves, that we were above certain things, that we were too smart, too experienced, too whatever. But I'd rather not have the fiction. I'd rather have the Sunday afternoons on the patio and the dying cactus that's definitely resting, and the knowledge that my mum and I can survive the same embarrassing mistake and come out the other side still talking. Marcus from Tucson doesn't get to take that from us. If you've ever had a Marcus in your life, or if you've been on the wrong side of a situation with someone you love and had to find your way back, drop it in the comments. I promise I'll read every single one. And if this story felt even a little bit like yours, share it with someone who needs it. We're none of us as alone in our mistakes as we think we are. Subscribe if you want more of these. I have others. I'm not proud of that, but I have others.